going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube. And also rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. What is going on, Bears fans? Today we are going to be recapping yet another heartbreaking loss from our beloved Chicago Bears and getting flused as it feels like it's being called. Taco Man, what's good, my friend? Glad to see, you're still going strong with all this stuff. How we feeling out there? And Hype Writer, why am I still a Bears fan, right? Exactly. And we're going to break this down and we're going to talk about this a little bit because, this isn't directly after everything, but yeah, like what Taco Man said, we expected this. It still hurts because it was such a good game and it was such a potentially good win. And I was saying this when they were driving down or even before the drive, I was saying this is something that we have not seen. Caleb could do something that we have not seen a Bears quarterback do in a long time, which is beat the Green Bay Packers, which is to win and also create a comeback and make this thing happen. And when you talk about all the turmoil that this team has gone through, all the morale stuff, and I believe it was Darnell Wright that said this as well. Darnell Wright said something along the lines of, hey, you know what? We work so hard, but then we just find a way to lose. And this was before the game. And we do something like this. This just screams what we are, how we feel as Bears fans, because we were so close. And then ultimately the blocked field goal. And as most of you know, I live in Wisconsin. A lot of my friends, they are Packer fans. If you're curious about what type of hate I got from the Packer fans, there was zero hate. It was all pity. And I want to just make that clear. First off, I appreciate that. Thank you, my friends, if they're watching. But this is the thing. Our biggest rival. Imagine how much we hate the Packers. If the Packers sucked and they were losing, would we feel apologetic? No, we wouldn't. Not 1 ounce. But I have my friends being apologetic because they're like, man, I can't imagine what type of misery Bears fans go through. I can't believe you guys go through this. And it was multiple occasions. My friends sent me messages about how sorry they felt. They didn't feel good after winning this game. They felt sorry. When your rival feels sorry for you because they just keep beating you in random ways. And they said this to me. They said, well, it's just the Bears. And this is stuff that we talk about with the Lions. I remember when we started this show, 3 years ago? And it's well, they're the Lions. I saw people out in chat, we would say that. Well, it's the Lions, right? They're we'll beat them because they're the Lions. That's us now with the Bears. They'll beat us because we're the Bears. This is what will happen to us. Because last year we blew, 3 or is it 4 games that we had 99% chances of winning, and then we just continued to have something like this. And that I think is the thing that is frustrating. But to me, thank you, friends. If you're listening, Packer fan friends, thank you for at least giving me a little bit of pity because it made me feel better. But man, I just can't believe that that's what happened. But also, I want to let everyone know also, if you're out there listening, out there watching, I just beg you, go on Monday night. Tomorrow, we'll be breaking down the tape, and something as we turn this page, something that does feel good is the way that Caleb played, the way that this offensive system was humming, and wasn't the greatest system that we've seen out there, but this was a good team, a good defense. One of the first challenges that Caleb was going to face, and he came out there and played well. Quite frankly, when we talk about the most valuable Bear, I think it's ultimately going to come down to Caleb Williams because the guy played. And if you're looking, and I think that's why it stings, is because we all know that if Matt Eberflus is out, which it most likely seems like he's going to be out at the end of the season, if and when he's going to be out, Thomas Brown's going to be out. And to me, I love the idea that they're giving Thomas Brown a chance, someone who was rising up the ranks and someone that didn't get a fair shake out in Carolina. So personally, I really like that he's at least able to maybe do something, but it's kind of unfortunate because he's not going to be able to, we're not going to be able to see him. We're not going to be able to get the fruits of the labor. Maybe he turns into an amazing offensive coordinator elsewhere. But if we have new coaching staff, he's not going to be here. And overall, the offense played well. The defense was being gashed, but then eventually started to kind of put things together and start to look a little bit better. And the special teams ultimately blew it at the end. And I don't want to dwell on this, but I don't know the exact rules, but it did look like 3 freaking Packers went right at the long snapper and destroyed the long snapper to get that ball. Just saying. So I'm not going to dwell on it. But I do want to, me doing my job, I just have to say that that was something that was a little bit, But let's see what y'all are saying out there. Taco Man saying that 4th down back shoulder was beautiful. It was. Was it? And the thing that was frustrating is like, that's the type of stuff that other teams do on us. And we're seeing this and it's like, oh my gosh, this is great. And Joe saying, ripped my heart out, felt bad for my son more than myself, right? Like, I'm looking at this going, man, like my kids were asleep. They had a late nap and the kids came down after the game and they just go, Dad, how was the game? Did we beat the Packers? And I'm like, nope. like, nope, sorry. And they're like, can we watch the game? And I'm like, maybe we don't. So we actually put on an old game because my son has a Brian Urlacher jersey. So we put on an old Brian Urlacher game just to make us feel better about ourselves a little bit. But yeah, Hype Rider saying Caleb is being robbed by Eberflus right now 2 times in 4 games on game-winning drives. Victor, what's good? Saying despite expectations, ultimately pulls through this season away. Got 3 wins to match last year. Then Joe saying Flus just doesn't know how to win. Yeah. And then Hype Rider saying, I agree, this is probably going to be the best film review we've had. Yeah, exactly. I think with that, I think the film review is going to be good. And also, I really want to see how the run defense also kind of grew throughout the night as well, because we were giving up so many yards. And when we look at the stats, like from the defensive standpoint, we gave up 260 passing yards, but yet again, this was on 13 completions, so they're averaging 20 yards a catch. They're throwing it deep. So we know that it was really Christian Watson, those deep passes, but then also hitting them underneath with Josh Jacobs. That's ultimately how they ended up getting the yards. And for anyone that is kind of like, I don't want Caleb taking the easy stuff, that's what Jordan Love was basically doing all game, and then lobs it out and just unbelievable catches. Kudos to Christian Watson for those little pieces. But that's where, yeah, just do the easy stuff. And then the rushing attack, we gave up 4.2 yards a carry, which quite frankly ain't that bad. It felt like Josh Jacobs was running all over us. Ultimately ends up with 4.2 yards a carry. And then when on our offensive standpoint, Caleb Williams, 231 passing yards. We had 179 yards on the ground, averaging 5.3 yards a carry. It's good stuff. And I think that's why we feel frustrated, because if you get this win, right? If the Bears came away with a win, last second win over your rivals that we haven't beat in 10 straight losses. If you beat that, maybe you get a spark. Maybe that's the spark that this team needs to at least build some hope that, hey, we can do this. We have a new offensive coordinator. We can keep on going. But with that really stinks. That really stings. But at least, hopefully the offense at least knows, hey, we can at least do something, because we're going to be here. The coaching staff is not. I could see the defense not doing so hot, but the offense, just keep it going and keep it going. So let's talk about some of the inactives, some of the injuries that ended up taking place as well, like we always do. So Amir Speed, Tevin Jenkins, Karan Amagaji, and Dominique Robinson, the inactives, but 2 injuries to monitor. Elijah Hicks went down. He came back into the game, but Ryan Bates immediately basically goes down. So what we ended up seeing, Jake Curhan playing left guard rather than the human turnstile out there, Doug Kramer. And ultimately, like, Curhan, type of deal. But I think that what you're really starting to see is just that guard spot. Like, I wish that Bill Murray was not on IR, because I think this would have been a perfect game for him to at least be out there. And we're seeing just Tevin going down and other players going down, like Ryan Bates not being fully healthy. And that's where you really wish that we had one of those players like Bill Murray out there, because Doug Kramer just continues to not look good. And even at fullback, like they even called it out, he didn't even hit a single one. And every time that we watch him at fullback on the film review, nothing good ever happens. Now, nothing ever good happens with it. So maybe try to find another one. I hope that Amagaji could maybe be that, or something along those lines, because Doug Kramer just ain't it. Just really ain't it. So let's talk about this offense, because I have some advanced metrics that I just want to break this down. Because like I said, if you want something positive about this, and actually this isn't just like, we're not seeking out the positive, seeking out the good news. It was a good game. It, like, yet again, not anything unbelievable, but like we talked about in the preview show, let me like load up the numbers real quick, because this is a good defense that the Bears were going against. And let me just nab that. Yeah, the defense that we were going against, 12th EPA per play, 12th for the EPA, or never mind, that's the wrong one. 8th in EPA per play from a defensive perspective. So advanced metrics, we're like, hey, this is a top 10 defense, like borderline. They're like the number 10 defense that's out there. And you had a good game. Like, go away like happy with this, at least, especially when your starting left guard immediately gets knocked out of the game and you're able to still have a good throwing game. And when I look at like those advanced metrics, what we're seeing is Thomas Brown did what a lot of us said, try to get the ball out quick. But it doesn't mean that it just has to be short little dump offs and other pieces like this, because having an offensive line that is this consistently beaten up on the inside, what do? Get the ball out quick, right? And I saw someone say, who would have thought that getting the ball out quick was the answer to a bad offensive line? Because it is. He threw it 2.42 seconds. So quick ball getting out. And this was also something that I think it was the second quickest time this week. Now, keep in mind, all the other weeks, he's been throwing it around 3.2, like Justin Fields-esque numbers, where he's been holding on to the ball way too long. He got the ball out quick. Now, does this mean that he was throwing it short? No. He was actually middle of the road in completion air yards, or completion air yards per attempt, and also intended air yards per attempt at 6.6 for intended air yards and 4.6 intended air yards. So what does that mean? It means that we aren't just doing the easy dump offs at the line of scrimmage. Most of the plays were actually going past the sticks. So when you look at this, the only passes that went, we had 6 total passes that went at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. So that means they're not the easiest passes in the world. He's just getting the ball out fast. So that is something that we can definitely take away, is that, hey, this is what we were seeing. He was getting the ball out. He was getting it out quick. And also they were running different routes that allowed him to do that. Also 3.6% adjusted completion over expected. So he was being accurate and he was also getting the ball out. Like, right, there was a couple that he did miss. But overall, quarterbacks will miss throws. It happens all the time. And to me, good game. Very good game. And also when you talk about just him rushing the football as well, when you look at his running yards, 9 carries, 70 yards. So he not only got the yards in the air and looked good passing the football, he also was running the football very well, yet again, against a good defense. This is good stuff. This is good stuff, right? And we blew it at the very end. I think, yet again, that's why we're so frustrated at this, because it was almost there. It was so close to completion, but unfortunately, this ends up happening. And even when you, so all those numbers point to just good passing performances. And that's why I'm really excited to go through the tape and see what he's doing, because he looked good. So let's look at, and then also too, the running attack. The running attack wasn't really getting fully going, but something that we did see with Thomas Brown is the inclusion of Roschon Johnson a lot more. And quite frankly, really liked it. Yet again, this is a team that we were going against that allowed, 4.1 or 4.2 yards per carry, which is very, very good. And the Bears were able to run well against them. And I like the diverse running scheme. So Roschon Johnson only had 3.3 yards a carry, but keep in mind, a lot of those carries did come at the goal line where he then punched it in for a touchdown. So because of this, it kind of shrinks down his yardage. He also doesn't get those big chunk plays. But overall, I really liked what he was able to do. He just was bruising. He was knocking down the Packers. I liked it. I really liked the two-headed monster rather than just DeAndre Swift. Gives you something different. And also, Swift has more energy then to try and break tackles and break one and cut one loose, which he did for 39 yards. But also when you look at the advanced metrics on these running backs, it also continues to push that they had a good game. From an efficiency perspective, yet again, you want lower yards on this, so less yards for more yards that you can get. Swift had a 3.17 efficiency rating and Roschon Johnson 3.5. Both were in top 10 so far for this week. Also, when you look at them running the football, Green Bay loaded the box on 50% of Roschon Johnson running snaps and 35.71% of DeAndre Swift running snaps, which was both top 5. So they planned to just load the box, stop the run, but still the run was able to do something. So they were really trying to dare Caleb Williams to do something. They were pushing up, but he was that's where it's a good game, right? It's a good game for us Bears. And also when you look at rushing yards over expectation, DeAndre Swift was first in the league at 1.3 yards extra per carry, and Roschon Johnson at 0.49 yards extra per carry, which was 6th best. So your running backs were efficient. Your quarterback was playing well. Everything was cooking. And still, right? So that's just the frustrating part. They got DJ involved, 7 of 7 when targeted. They even got him in on a rushing play, but also too, Cole Kmet, 3 catches, 42 yards. But Keenan Allen was actually the only incompletion, let me see. Okay, never mind. Incompletions were also to Rome Odunze. So 4 to Rome Odunze and 4 incompletions to Keenan Allen. But Rome Odunze had a great game too. You saw just the connections, him throwing it back shoulder to Rome. Rome makes an excellent catch. There was a lot of good that we saw today. A lot of good from this offense. And all that I hope is that the offense sees this. And I hope that they are bought in to understanding the bigger picture rather than just this season, right? DJ should, because he's locked into this team, whether he likes it or not, for the next, basically tied at the hip with Caleb. Same thing with Rome. Same thing with a lot of these players. So at least, hopefully with the offense, they can see the larger picture and just continue to try to make Caleb better, because that is what we saw today. That is something that is very good. Now, we go to the defense, where, like we said, the defense gave up a good chunk of rushing yards at the very beginning of the game, but also those chunk plays ended up being the dagger that was able to have the Packers move. They weren't able to do the they weren't able to do the intermediate stuff. They could only do the easy stuff and the deep stuff. That was it. But ultimately, when you have a gunslinger like Love, that's where they've ended up being able to sling it, and then ultimately came away with 20 points. And yeah, nothing too great. So yeah, I see out there in the chat, defense regress, says Joe. Defense let us down, says Taco Man. And I agree with Michael. With the missing piece with Billings, they were just attacking right up the middle. And you see it because Pickens ain't Andrew Billings. And I honestly think that Byron Cowart should really be the starting defensive tackle next to Javon. Because Javon's been great, like we've said. Javon has been awesome. But when you don't have that other defensive tackle, I was even going to look up defensive tackle free agents, but this is like what we were talking about at the very beginning of the season, where the Bears don't have a lot of that depth at the D tackle position because they just simply don't. And we kind of had a feeling that Zach Pickens wasn't going to progress. But yeah, not to this extent where he's basically playing the exact same way that he was before. But let's see. I'm looking at anything else. Don Burr, right there. But yeah, Savage saying Hicks is not hitting like a strong safety. He's not. I definitely agree with that. Like, you saw him the touchdown run. He was supposed to try. He had an opportunity to bring down Jacobs. Ultimately cannot. So Jacobs ends up running it in for a touchdown. But I will say Hicks has been playing a lot better than what we were hoping for. So, yet again, as a backup, has been good. But we have some depth at safety at least. So if Hicks is down, we at least have Jonathan Owens as well. So, yeah, defense, but then also we have Terrell Smith. Terrell Smith comes away with the interception. Gotta love that. And still, nice to see Smith going in there, kind of putting some of the heat on Tyreek Stevenson. I really do like some of that. Only thing that gets me a little bit nervous that I want to see is just when you have these corners switching in and out, does it affect any of the zone concepts, right? Because when you build chemistry with your safeties, like, I know where you're going to be, you know where I'm going to be, we know how to pass things off. I want to see if any of those issues came when they were swapping out different corners. So something just to see. And I do agree with Hypewriter. Terrell Smith needs a lot more playing time. Like, Smith has been good. Like, Smith has been just very solid. Tyreek gives you that sudden burst. He's more volatile, where he'll give you good play, he'll give you bad play. I feel like with Smith, you just get good, solid play. Like, I don't expect Terrell Smith to be this unbelievable cornerback. Like, I think Tyreek has that more of those high level types of things that are out there. But yeah, Smith just has been, anytime he's out there, it's just good play. And to me, that might be what you more so need. And look at this. He comes away with an interception. Why? Because he's not doing anything flashy. He's just in the spot, gets an opportunity, makes the play. So, and I do agree with Joe. I still think that Montez Sweat is still banged up. Like, you saw it too. Like, every now and again, he just gets a little hitch, just starts to be a little gimpy. And actually, speaking of that too, Allen also looking a little bit banged up. Same thing with DJ Moore. DJ Moore, I feel every single game gets hurt. Every single game he gets banged up a little bit. But let's talk about special teams. And do we really have to talk special teams? They blocked a field goal. And ultimately, the punts, it kind of goes back to that whole like drafting a punter, because now we kind of see it, right? Averaging 41.5 yards a punt. But I will say, like, DeAndre Carter has been a pleasant surprise. I was watching the game a little bit with my dad, and he was like, I didn't think much of DeAndre Carter, but he's been good. So my dad approves. I approve too. Like, he's been solid. But yeah, special teams was okay. Jaden Reed came away with a 16-yard punt return as well. That was a little hit to the side. But I think ultimately just the kicking. I don't know. How did you all feel? Because I see Ron was saying too, yeah, Flus, get him out of here. Judah, what's good? Like, it's just, to me, the thing that, I don't know, it was just bothersome. Like, when they were going to go out to kick the field goal, I literally was standing up and I'm like, I don't want this. Like, and I'm like, no, something is going to happen. It's going to happen. And it's like, we know, right? How many people out there thought that was going in? Because I didn't. I was literally sitting there like, this ain't going to happen. And if it went in, I would have told you today, I would have been like, my Bears PTSD was telling me that this wasn't going to go in. But I was like pacing, and I started pacing and I'm like, no. And I was like, it's going to be missed. And it was, right? Because we know this is what always happens. This is what always happens to us, it feels. So unfortunate. And then funny thing too, my wife's asleep. My wife wakes up after the play happens, right? And she didn't see the whole like drive down or anything like that. She fell asleep, right? That's what she wanted to do, which I'm kind of jealous that she slept during the Bears game. So she gets up, and my wife is not a football expert by any means, right? She played volleyball, so she's athletic, but she's not a football expert by any means. And she's asking me, she's like, so the Bears were winning? How did they lose? I was like, well, we drove down and they blocked the field goal. And she's like, well, and I'm like, yeah. And they just like kind of ticked down the clock. And she goes, well, was it like fourth down or something? I go, no, it was first. Well, did they have timeouts? I'm like, yeah, they had one. Why would they do that? She asked me, she's like, why didn't they try to get more yards? And I'm like, exactly. Exactly. So I think that this is, right, if they don't fire Flus after this, right, here's the thing. I don't expect them to fire Flus. Even though that I was calling for it, it's not going to happen. If they do, this would be unbelievable. But this is the thing that happens, is that you ask any professional athlete, you ask any just athlete itself. We like, for most of the people, I'm assuming all of us were not professional athletes, that most of us that are listening were not professional athletes. We all know this. There's some people and some groups, and sometimes when you play a pickup game with your friends, you're just going to win. Or some intramural teams that you were on, you're just going to win. And other times, you're just going to lose. This has losing atmosphere. This has losing energy. And this is where, like, it sucks. It sucks that this is the case. But also, too, did anyone else see Caleb yelling to the sidelines to be out there on fourth down? And to me, something that strikes me is this Caleb going against the coaching staff and being like, no, we're going to go for it? And guess what? When they did that, they went for it because they believe in themselves and they're like, we have to do something. We have to do something better, something bigger. And they ended up getting it. And I think that is something that is hard to see, because I was hearing, I think it was Lance Briggs. I think Lance Briggs was talking about this. And I love hearing the stories of the Tressman era. And he was talking about how for him, the difference with the Tressman era was the inmates were running the asylum, so to speak, right? The players, they were trying to say the players should do everything. But here's the thing. You need to have leadership. You need to have ownership at that level. And right now, we just simply don't have it. And right now, the players don't want to be there. The players want to do it their way. And the players, when they did it their way with the offense and going for it on fourth down, they got what they wanted. And I think that is just something that's a little just, yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, Kevin out there, fire Flus. I just would like to see this team understand that this season is over. So you're playing for it. You're playing for the development of Caleb. You're playing for the development of everything else. And we get so many of these just losing streaks with Flus. And here's the thing. Maybe we turn it up and then now we get on this crazy win streak like we did last year. Or we're going to do what we did before and just continue this whole losing streak. So to me, we'll see if anything else happens with Flus, because, hey, the team was out there, and I heard Flus in an interview on ESPN 1000 right afterwards, and the thing that ground my gears is, first off, you kind of hear, at first he comes in, and he's kind of got this optimistic vibe to him, and he's like, you know, we could really do this, right? Like, we played great. We had great communication. The offense was playing awesome. And then further on in that, you can see him just kind of, everything kind of sheds, and he's just kind of like, yeah, well, you know, that's why it's so tough. You can see he was truly just defeated. But he was trying to just highlight all the good. And like we said, there's a lot of good, but you just have to win. You just have to make something happen. And it just simply, it's not winning. It's not winning football. And I would even say, I said this when we had Matt Nagy and we were somehow winning games, like, you know, at the second season, like it was like the second season or the third season, where it was like we were 8-8. But like when you look at it, you're like, well, the defense is not that good and the offense is terrible. How are we winning games? And now with this, you're like, the offense played well, the defense played well. How do we not win games? So ultimately, so now let's see. And because I agree with Kevin, how do you not keep driving when you have all this stuff and you have all this momentum and the stadium's rocking, and they're like, hold. Like, Stay. Don't do anything. Don't do anything crazy. Yeah, just a waste of time. But do you know what's not a waste of time? Let's talk about the real most valuable bear that's out there. Because who was the most valuable bear? Because to me, it goes down to two people. Because defense, no one really had an unbelievable performance. You know, I'm looking at it. Kevin Byard, 9 tackles. Edmonds, 7 tackles. But I think that actually maybe comes down to 3. Because I think DeAndre Swift played well, but I don't think that he's a candidate. So let me know who you think. Who are you giving MVP to? Because also Rome, 6 catches, 65 yards, played well. And then we also see DJ Moore, 7 catches on 7 targets for 62 yards. And the guy was fighting out there. But here's the thing. It's Caleb. Like, to me, it's Caleb. Caleb played well. He was throwing the football well. He was running the football well. Everything he was doing was good. And that's why tomorrow we'll break it all down. Just have to throw a little plug out there. So around 7 o'clock Central Time, usually around 7:15, we'll go through there and we'll just navigate how he played. You lose your starting left guard and you're able to do this stuff. People know how to beat him on tape. You run man concepts. Why do you run man concepts? Because he's not confused by zone. It's difficult for him to throw on man because our receivers haven't been getting open. So to me, I love this that Caleb gets it. Caleb gets the MVP because that's the thing. I think that ultimately just that's what you want to see. So if anyone's hanging their head, which is all of us, all of us that are hanging our head, the thing that we can feel good about is Caleb's performance. Ultimately, that guides us. Ultimately, that impending free agents, this is something that will be good. Future head coaches, this is something that's good. He continues to do this, and we saw that, hey, maybe there was something that just, yet again, we watched the tape. There's good stuff there, and this kind of puts him in the right direction. So hopefully, this is a good sign for moving forward. But let's wrap this show up, right? So if you're out there watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. And also for all those that are listening out there in podcast land, thank you all so much. Make sure to rate 5 stars and also share this out with your friends, because tomorrow we will be live breaking down the tape, and it's just a good time. You know, grab a drink, whatever, and just hang out with us as we break down the tape and talk about what could have been. With that, thank you all so much. Have an amazing week if I do not see you. And also on Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad chick.